Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Rika Whelan if we have not met yet. And in this episode, I'd like to talk to you about the Tuckman model. Now, in the very first episode that I have put out on this YouTube channel, I spoke about the Tuckman model and the importance of understanding the Tuckman model. Right, now what is the Tuckman model? Bruce Tuckman did research on the team development stages. And originally, there were only 4 stages, but then later on, very recently actually, a couple of maybe 20 years ago, he added the 5th stage. Now, what are these stages? Number 1 is the forming phase. Number 2 is the storming phase. 3 is the norming phase. 4 is the performing phase. And 5 is the adjourning phase. Now, if you'd like to follow along, you can download the show notes. I have popped the link in the description below for you. Now, before we get started, please be sure to like this video or subscribe to the channel because that would really help me to get my message out to more leaders, which is ultimately the whole goal of this YouTube channel. I want to mentor and support and coach as many leaders as possible, but ultimately, I'd like to guide leaders through eradicating workplace gossip and creating the workplace culture of their dreams, the one that they've always desired about. So, how can you do that? Well, one of the things that you can do is by understanding these 5 team development stages. Okay, so if you're ready, let's dig into it. Now, the first phase is the forming phase. Now, what is the forming phase? Well, the forming phase officially starts when you have a new team member that comes on board on your team. Now, that might just look like a team shuffle where there are different teams now working together. It might be in the same department, but there's different teams. Or it might be somebody completely new, an outsider coming into your team. So the forming phase is when there's a new person, let's say any new person joining a team, and all of a sudden people just want to put their best foot forward. They're respectful towards each other and they kind of behave extremely friendly. And some people get annoyed at other people that are so extremely friendly because normally they're not that friendly, okay? So this is called the forming phase where people are still forming those relationships. They really just want to get a good first impression out there. And it's very important to them that the other person or the new person likes them. But for the new person, it's also important that their teammates like them. But after that, what happens is that we go into what's called the storming phase. Now, this is basically when the honeymoon phase, which is the forming phase, that's when the honeymoon phase is over and people don't get along. All of a sudden, you realize that your team are bickering more than usual. There are more differences of opinion than ever before, and people just seem to clash. Now, that can be with the new person, or it can be other people in the team that have already been in a team for quite a long time, and it surprises you that these 2 people are all of a sudden not getting along. Now, that is the effect that any new person can have on the dynamics of the team because it does change the dynamic. If you think about it, if there's maybe 3 people in the team and there's 1 person that have left and 1 new person that has come on board, in that triangle of a team, the dynamics look different. The way we communicate with each other, the way we behave towards each other is completely different. So don't underestimate when a new person comes on board how that can change the dynamic. And just beware, if you're aware that the storming phase is going to happen, it's much easier to navigate through the storming phase because you and your team know that that's what's to be expected. So you can be open and honest with your team about the 5 stages of development, about the Tuckman model. And I have typically made it part of my onboarding process so that people, especially if they're new, they learn about the storming phase because through all the years that I have gone through and that I've used this model, people resign in the storming phase because they think they've come into an environment where they don't belong. They think they've made a mistake to come into this organization and they think that it's just not for them. So I would quite often recommend that they just try and see through the storming phase and that they try and get into the norming phase, which is the next phase. You don't want the person to resign just because of that storming phase, because then they have an idea of what your organization is all about, and they might then go and ruin the organization's reputation for anybody else, because they will say, definitely don't go and work there. Team dynamics are awful, the workplace culture is awful. When in actual fact that's not true. It's just that they had experienced that storming phase. Now, as part of your show notes, I have included some additional notes on what is the role of a leader during these phases. So be sure to download the show notes in the description below. Now, the next phase is the norming phase. The norming phase is when things go back to normal. It starts feeling as if, okay, things are going back to the way they were before the new team member came on board. And that is just because things are subsiding. It's where people now start learning that, oh, okay, when that person uses that tone of voice, they don't actually mean it rudely, they just stressed. Or, oh, that's what that person meant. Or in my case, when I was new, I really new in a new country, I struggled to understand people's accents. Different accents, so that could cause quite confusion and conflict. So after that storming phase, after a period of time, my brain could finally process all the accents, and there were less confusion and less confrontation because I didn't understand what they were saying. So just encourage people to get into that norming phase where things start going back to normal, and encourage the team to come up with a common goal, something that they want to work towards as a team. Give them something to achieve together, give them a project, give them something to work on so that they can really, really start working together as a team. It's not a good idea to give that brand new team a new project during the storming phase, because that will just rip them apart even further. So during the norming phase is a really good time to give a brand new team a project, because that's when they've moved away from all their differences of opinion, and now they really want to start working together because they start understanding each other and each other's personalities. That then leads into the fourth phase, which is the performing phase. And that's when that specific team starts performing really well together. They hit their goals, they meet their KPIs, and they've really got a good team dynamic. Like, you really see they're kind of in a clique, which I know the word clique has got a negative connotation to it, but I think you'll understand what I mean. Like, they're really a good team. They love being together. They go out for coffee in the morning together. They chat, they work together. They'll spend their lunch hours together. So it's just really that performing team that every leader dreams of having. They perform because they've gone through those stages, and because you've guided them as a leader through those stages as well, they can now perform. But sadly, somebody always has to leave, which puts that team in the adjourning phase. Now, what's common in this phase is that people start feeling really sad. There's a sense of grief, and there's just really this, you can kind of sense it in the air that something's about to change. And that is because something is about to change. Another person's about to come on board, and then all the phases will start again. You can have a team of 5 or 6 or even 10 people, and then only one person leaves and one new person comes on board. It'll change the whole dynamic, and all of those phases will start all over again. So I'd like to challenge you. So think of times when you have onboarded a new person, or when people have left. If you have noticed these 5 stages of development in those teams, or personally, if you've been an employee before, which I know you have, you can't be in a leadership role if you've not been an employee before. Think about when you were an employee and you went through those team development stages yourself. Can you think of times when you've been in the forming phase? Can you think of those times when you were in the storming phase? Can you think of when you were in the norming, the performing, and the adjourning phase? So use these 5 stages of development to your advantage, because this is a really good thing as a leader to know. It is something so powerful and something so crucial that can just transform the way your teams work together. It can transform the way you as a leader work with your teams. And it's just such a fantastic tool. Please include it in your onboarding process. And please download the show notes. It's a PDF that I've created for you that you can download. And it includes all the information that I've said, plus some additional information which I didn't mention, which is your role as a leader. If you found value in this video, please click the like button, please subscribe. It would mean so much to me to have you as part of my community. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Please connect with me on LinkedIn, just under my name, Rika Whelan, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.